And I have not failed you in warning you of what the government of the United States of America has been planning against black people generally, but black youth in particular, and the Nation of Islam. Now, you may not have been listening, but you're going to listen today, because we're at the end of this now. I had to think about this. Reagan met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, okay, in early September. Wow. But I don't know who the war is against. He didn't say. That was for me to study. But the formula was so deep. I went on a tour, world tour, and while I was in Africa, boy, America, you have been something, because you knew when you heard me in '84 that Elijah was back. And he was back in that young man that was talking. He's back today. And now, in the fullness of these 32 years, I'm going to run real quick over 6 presidents that have met with their Joint Chiefs of Staff to plan a war in the Islamic world and to plan a war against black people and particularly black youth. And we're at the end of it now. The plan is to genocide and kill you all. Listen to me good now. I'm going to drop it in the president's lap because he's the last one. Yes, sir. Reagan ain't never loved us. When Reagan was the governor in California, he and Edwin Meese, who later became his attorney general, they were planning war games in California. And the war games were not against some foreign enemy. The war games were against black people. And this has continued from 6 presidents. And the slickest of them all, Tricky Dick was before. But Slick Willie, you caught more hell under the Clinton administration, and you thought he was our first black president. But I want to run the presidents down so you could see that the government of America has been planning our demise. Any members of Congress here, any members of the civil rights movement that are here, you love this nation. You've suffered every indignity to make America better, that she might be great. And every time you forced her to make a law that was in our favor, they came right behind that law with skill and chicanery to make the law of non-effect. This started in 1876 in the Hayes-Tilden presidential election. It was so close they didn't know who it was, who the winner was. So they met here in Washington at the Wormley Hotel. It's not here now. In 1877. But the election was in 1876. Thank you. I know what I'm saying, brother. I need help, though. But when I need it, I'll call you. In the Wormley Hotel, the white members of Congress made a deal that Rutherford B. Hayes would be president. But Tilden, being in Congress, the deal was that when we were so-called emancipated, Abraham Lincoln sent federal troops into the South to make sure that black people were treated better. Yes, sir. But the deal was, if you let Rutherford B. Hayes be president, we'll take all the federal troops out of the South, and then you all can go back to doing what you do. That was called the great betrayal of the so-called American Negro in 1877. Now, to the Jewish people in this hall, you weren't there, but there was a Jewish man named Levi who was in Congress, and he sold the agreement that was made in the hotel to the members of Congress, and it became policy. Yes, sir. And Reconstruction then was over. In 12 years, black people had built over 60 towns because we were the artisans, we were the craftsmen, we were the builders. In 12 years, we were in Congress. We had high positions. But after that agreement came the Ku Klux Klan, the Night Riders, slave codes, black codes, and members of the Jewish community who owned a lot of the plantations. Please don't get angry and upset, because this is real history. You put us back on the plantation as sharecroppers. You began riding down on us, and if any of us escaped the plantation, many of the Irish that were coming over were they call them the paddy wagon. They would come after us and bring us back to the plantation. Those were hard days. Hard days. Guess what? When the Emancipation Proclamation so-called set us free, we were the builders, we were the architects, we were the brick masons, we were the carpenters, we were the plumbers, we were all of that. If you saw a white man with a hammer in his hand, he was going to beat some black man, but he wasn't building nothing. Then, in this book, which we researched from Jewish scholars, historians, rabbis, over 2,000 footnotes. And when they told me, Farrakhan, that book is a great calumny against the Jewish people, they said, we want you to denounce that book. Because it's false. I said to Irv Kutzinet, Rabbi Shalman, and a few rabbis I met in their home. They said, Farrakhan, you must denounce the book. I said, fine. If it's false, I don't want to have nothing to do with it. I said, but everyone that we quoted is a Jewish scholar, a Jewish rabbi, or a Jewish historian. So I'll denounce it, but you have to denounce everyone that we quoted as liars. Now look, all is fair. In love. They told me, if you want our friendship, we have to watch you over a protracted period of time. Yeah, imagine. And I was supposed to be like a little Negro because I'm in their house and say, yes, sir. When we got finished with them that day, the war was on. Because I told them, I don't mind being your friend. That's why I'm here. But if being your friend means I got to deny the truth, then yours is a friendship I don't need, and yours is a friendship I don't want. So you all know that when you got a black man that's not going to bow to you, then that's trouble, because you've been waiting for the Messiah. And you know that he comes to end your civilization. So when you hear a black man talking like Farrakhan is talking, you hear the end coming. And if you can stop him, if you can shut his mouth, if you can kill him, Ronald Reagan wanted to kill Gaddafi. When I found out the war was against Gaddafi, I was in Benin and in Ghana and in Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. Yes, sir. And I sent all my family back, and I flew to Libya. And all of Gaddafi government was in my hotel, and I told them my vision. They ran out of that room like Raid had been there. And the next thing I knew, Brother Gaddafi said he wanted me to speak and introduce him the next day, and 80 nations of the non-aligned movement were in Libya. And I stood in Tripoli and repeated that experience on the wheel and told Gaddafi what they were going to do. They were going to bomb the airport, destroy the water project. He listened. He got his airplanes out into the Sudan. The next thing I knew, an American plane was shot down, and one of those fine aircraft carriers that Mr. Trump brought over to Asia was in the Gulf of Sirte. But something happened to him. By the time I got to Saudi Arabia, it came out in the Arab news that there was a bright object over the Mediterranean. Just listen to me. I'll die on what I'm telling you. And I said to those with me, I said, the wheel was there. The electronic equipment on the aircraft carrier was messed up. So it had to go back to Florida. In the meantime, I was able to get out of Libya. I got into Saudi Arabia, and a few days later, the bombs dropped on Libya. It was the greatest assassination attempt, most expensive in history. So they always wanted Gaddafi. But what I did not know was the war at that time was on two fronts. It was war with a Muslim country in Africa, but war on the nation of Islam and Islam, period, in America. Reagan was doing war games in California. When he became president, he brought all that stuff with him into the White House. Meese came. And the war games were practiced even more so because they expected since 67 and 68, when the riots broke out and Dr. King was assassinated, the government of America knew that the black youth were dangerous. Black folk were becoming more militant. And instead of seeing that there has to be a solution, let's separate the two people. But he didn't want to do that. Killed them. Reagan out. Well, I start with Nixon because that fellow was so bad. Did you know that Nixon the whole thing about Nixon was the left, West, the anti-war group, and all blacks, not some. So the plot was against black people in general. Notice how many black people we sent to Congress or made mayors or police chiefs, and all of a sudden they accepted a box of candy, or they went to a basketball game or baseball game, and the next thing you know, they're before court and going to jail on some foolishness that white people do all the time. They made Mayor Marion Barry look horrible. They had brother on TV smoking the pipe. Did they? They made Mayor Barry look so bad that black people who were in the spirit to vote for black people, after seeing Mayor Barry like that, they said, what are we doing, man? So I was somewhere in Atlanta, and they came, the press. Mr. Farrakhan, you seem to be an upstanding man. What do you think about a man who is highly respected and he's using drugs and having illicit sex? I said, who are you talking about? JFK? That black woman froze. She wanted me as a black man to condemn another black man. But the White House, all you members of the press, you knew what kind of man John was. You knew what Bobby was. You knew they were sneaking Marilyn Monroe into the White House. But you never said a damn thing. Now all of a sudden everybody's groping. In the Holy Quran, Allah says of the Prophet, did not I find you an orphan? Did not I find you groping and showed you the way? Groping only means you're trying to find your way because you can't see, so you feel. Now, if you go to Congress and ask, will all the gropers please stand up? Practically the whole damn Congress will say, damn, I've been found out now. Just hypocrites. Oh, but then came Bush, H.W., and they say he's a groper too. From a wheelchair. I mean, the press is having a field day. In that packet, you'll find 2 letters that I wrote to President Bush, George W., but we warned H.W. of what was in his mind toward the Muslim world. Did you know that after 9/11, Wesley Clark, a general, talked about seeing a memo 10 years earlier out of the Pentagon? I want you to listen carefully. They were going to take down 7 Muslim countries in 5 years, ending with a war on Iran. So the spring came, and you saw, like dominoes, members of the Muslim world falling. But when 9/11 took place, which we challenged the government's interpretation of 9/11. It's a false flag operation. You knew that the country was divided in the election of George W. Bush over Gore. So while he was walking down the avenue, what's the name of that avenue in Washington? Pennsylvania Avenue. Instead of people saying hail to the chief, they were saying hail to the thief. And the country was so divided that what it needed was some event that could pull a divided country together. So here comes 9/11. And they say Muslims did it. They had some pilots that had gone to Florida to take flight lessons. I don't think they passed off of a Piper Cub. I don't understand how they had gained enough knowledge to get into the cockpit and at over 500 miles an hour, drop that plane down and then into the tower. Do you know that there's a CIA man, I think his name is Crosby? That man said, when the American people believe in whatever we have said, and they believe it's true, we have won. Yes, sir. You are a misused population. So when Mr. Trump talks about fake news, he knows what he's talking about. Now the press, you say you're the fourth estate. I would say you're in a hell of a state. Because you can't say what you really know to be the truth unless it passes the muster of those who are your bosses. Some of the press are assets of the CIA. Did you hear me? They have deceived the American people. So Donald J. Trump is busting up the institutions of a democratic country. My God.
Yes, sir.
Congress has 10% of the people with Congress. The media, the people don't trust the media. So every time he say fake news, if you study an article, 70 years of the CIA, the criminal arm of the U.S. government. These are criminals. They go into countries, kill presidents, overthrow governments, create civil war, and back away like they did nothing. They're crying about Russia's hacking into your little election when the American government has interceded in 81 countries to fix their elections and put into power those that would be in favor of American interests. But let me come to the end of this now. Tricky Dick and Slick Willie. We went from a small prison population, and the crime bill was directly against black people. White folk can afford to smoke or use powdered cocaine, but they fixed something in the crack cocaine. And we became addicted, and they sent us to prison. Once we're called a felon, they knew we couldn't vote anymore. So they were killing us at the voting booth by putting us in prison. And it all was a plot. And Mr. Trump, the consequences of America's evils over time has fallen in your lap. Do you know that we've been a problem for you ever since we've been here? You fought a civil war over what to do with us. Wow, think about that. Poor black brothers and sisters, you're so conscious now. You're pulling down the Confederate flag, you know, because that was the flag of the South in their breakaway rebellion against the North. But that's history.
Yes, sir.
You don't feel their pain, and they sure don't feel yours. But do you know how many white folk in the South lost their homes, lost their farms, lost their lives in that war? So when you force them to take down the flag that represents their commitment to slavery, yes, and to the way of the South, you jump up and pull it down, and you don't think you're going to get a backlash from white people? Robert E. Lee is a great general. When America won the war with Japan, They sat down with the generals. First World War, they showed respect, one general to another, one warrior to another. So now you want to take, okay, Robert, we don't like you, but get your statue out of here. So President Trump said, well, where's it going to end? Because the first 5 presidents were all slave owners. You're going to tear down the Jefferson Monument? You see how it's getting? So now white folk, as I said, when Mr. Trump was elected, the onion was being peeled back and white civility was no more. They're not acting by you like you think they should. They're angry. And they're killing us. And they know they have a genocidal plot against all black America, starting with Nixon and Kissinger. And Memorandum 200, go look it up. They want to cull the population of our planet by 2 billion people. This is not human. This is satanic. They've got their scientists in laboratories how to control your mind. So Dr. Wesley, our minister and analyst and researcher, he put out a book on weed. I mean, that's like talking to a pig eater and telling them don't eat pig. Man, they'll beat you up and sit down and eat a hog head. When you talk about weed to black people without God, you better put God in the equation, brother. Because weed is all right if it's pure. It has properties in it that can be used for medicinal purposes. But they're weaponizing the weed now. And they're doing lobotomies on the black man's brain. With chemistry, biology, and electrical energy stimulation. You're under assault, black brothers and sisters. Why is the sperm count in black men falling? Because of the food you eat and the water you drink. The lead in the water in Flint is not an accident. It's in Cleveland that way, and if you're not careful, it's here in Chicago. You can divert the water into the black community and then drop some stuff in the water. You drink in the water, you're bathing with the water, and all of a sudden you're acting strange. Do you know that homosexuality can be produced through chemistry? Don't be mad at me. Think. You can be turned into something through chemistry and the misuse of biology. So now the ball is in the court of Donald J. Trump. Mr. Trump, you met with your Joint Chiefs of Staff in August and in early September. You had your generals at Camp David. They weren't talking about taxes. You don't use generals to talk about taxes. You were planning a war, sir. George W. Bush, after 9/11, said he was going to divide the Muslims against themselves. Now a 1,400-year dispute between Shia and Sunni is about to take into a war. President Trump went to Saudi Arabia and called 50 Sunni nations through the king of Saudi Arabia. And instead of inviting Muslims to sit with Muslims to find out what's the point of contention and bringing peace about, he took those Sunni nations, yes you did, Mr. Trump, and you aimed their anger against Tehran and the Shia nation. Just recently, you sent much weaponry into the Middle East. You've sent missiles into the Middle East. Yes, sir. You didn't send them. You urged them to buy them. A war is brewing. Yes, sir. President Trump, you just left Asia, and you carried with you to Asia 3 of your largest aircraft carriers with F-18, F-16, a nuclear sub in the water. You had an armada around Kim Jong-un. You went to talk, but you had firepower to aid your lexicon of language. Barack Obama, you hate him. You call him a weak president because he's not like you, Mr. Trump, and he's not like his predecessors. He is like Jonah, who was a reluctant prophet. Barack Obama was reluctant to be the type of wicked man that your presidents are, have been, and like you said, let's take the oil. See, that's not presidential. The presidents would say, let's see if we can make a deal and give them money for their oil because we really want it all. That's presidential. We'll send our Secretary of State. He's such a diplomat. But you, Mr. Trump, we'll take the oil. You remember? Yes, sir. And with Stephanopoulos on ABC, we'll bomb the hell out of them. See, Mr. Trump is real. He is what he is. Now you either got to see him as he is, because all the rest of them were vampires that looked good in the day, but when night came, you know. Mr. Trump, and I say this to my brother Barack, you really tried to make America better. Couldn't succeed. because the moment you went overseas and started talking about the mistakes that America has made, Romney and the Republicans said, look at him. He's over there apologizing. Mr. Trump, more than an apology is needed. Mr. President, you're going to have to deal with either the thought that's in your mind that will destroy America and her future, because once the trigger of war is pulled, it will escalate. Now, I'm going to tell you what my teacher told me. You have planned a war.
Yes, sir.
The war that you have planned, you and your generals, is to the Middle East. You want to use the Sunni at the prodding of Israel to attack Iran. Just like you did with my brother Gaddafi.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You laid back, leading from behind. You in Syria now. Boy, this is rough. And Mrs. Clinton, she encouraged you to give the go-ahead to kill Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi had come in out of the cold. Gaddafi gave up all his weapons of mass destruction. And Bush used to be so proud to say, Gaddafi got the message. He's come in. And then under Barack, Hillary Clinton imposed her will. And they murdered Muammar Gaddafi. And the killing of Muammar Gaddafi wrapped a ribbon around Kim Jong-un. And it was given to you as a gift. You will never get North Korea to give up what she has as a trump card. That's over, Mr. Trump. Can you live with North Korea with nuclear weapons? I think you're going to have to. Yes, sir. Even though you have war plans already to knock out North Korea, but China said, if you attack North Korea, we have to defend them. China is right. Allah don't love aggressors. He said, but if North Korea attacks you, America, we'll lay out of it. So you went there thinking that you making friends. Wrong. You didn't discuss with China his plans for war. You have laid out in the Pentagon how you can wipe the Chinese out.
Right.
But you don't want China, not yet. And you don't want Kim Jong-un yet. But you're looking for a softer target and you think that's Iran. Wrong. Wrong. If you permit Israel to push Saudi and the Sunnis into war with the Shiites. I want to say this to the Muslim world. See, you are so blinded that you think with America's backing you can win. Wrong. You're a Muslim. If you got the backing of Allah, you can win. But you don't have that backing. Not as an aggressor. Pakistan is sitting there with nuclear weapons. I noticed Mr. Trump, he didn't mention Pakistan. Although at the United Nations, you did mention Iran, you mentioned Venezuela, you mentioned Cuba, and you mentioned Kim Jong-un. You'd rather fight all of those three and leave Kim Jong-un alone. But guess what? Guess what they found in North Korea? $6 to $10 trillion in mineral wealth. And guess what they found in Afghanistan? They dropped the mother of all bombs in an empty space, letting us know that you got it and you will use it. But what did you uncover? You know that in Afghanistan, there's another 10 trillion in mineral wealth. So Barack tried to get you out of there, but you agreed. You're back in it now. And you're not just in there. They found oil in the Golan Heights. Right. And Israel said she wants to get involved in the fray in Syria. But Russia is there. And they found tremendous oil reserves in the Golan Heights. And Israel wants to take that oil so that she will be oil self-sufficient. See, and just as you're reaching for it, your hands are going to get burned. And Israel, you are making America lose big time. You don't want me to say how much control AIPAC has over the U.S. government. And I know the press is here, you can't even say it except you tell something ugly so that your editors will give you leave. But brothers and sisters, let me tell you, you're going to be set free. Because that kind of cowardly news person who knows the truth and afraid to tell it, if you love this country, you tell the truth to change America, for she is going down and fast. Mr. President, you won't make America great again. Not in our time. She became great killing Native Americans. She became great enslaving us, bringing us from Africa into America to work the cotton fields. You're not going to get that opportunity back anymore. We made America rich and strong. And you can't tell me, Farrakhan, if you don't like America, you can go on back to Africa. Let me tell you something, white folk. You don't have a place on this earth that you can call your own except what we gave you, and that's in Europe. Now I'm closing. My God, Farrakhan. Are they planning war? Yes. Is it against black youth and black people?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. I want to close with showing you the signs that I had to watch in order to know what to say to Mr. Trump today. I was right, and you'll see it in your pack with President Bush. I was right with Ronald Reagan. When we had the Million Man March in this city, do you know that you were looking at a miracle? Let me tell you something. I can't take credit for what I know God helped me to do. We had the support of the nationalist community. We had the support of the church. 82% of the people present were Christians. 12% were other. And a Muslim called it, with the help of a Christian pastor, the Reverend Dr. Ben Chavis. We could not have done it without the black press. BET under Bob Johnson took out a full-page ad in USA Today back in the Million Man March. Mayor Marion Barry gave us the greatest support we have ever had from any mayor. I can't even get a police escort in Washington, D.C. Suppose I'm assassinated here. But you're already planning to kill me, and that I know. To the government. You're not coming into the black community looking for black identity extremists and not looking for me. You're not coming looking for separatists and saying you're not looking for me and the Nation of Islam. Muslims, do you know that we're the only thing that stands in between their wicked plan of the demasculization of the black man? The only thing that stands between that is the Nation of Islam. Now, those of you who are in love with Jesus Christ, I want you to know that a black man from Georgia was raised from a dead state, Elijah Muhammad. And you tried to kill him. And you thought you had succeeded. That's why when I was taken up on the wheel, he said, make known to them their plans and tell them you got it from me, Elijah Muhammad, on the wheel. What was he asking me, pardon me, ordering me to tell you that for? so you would know that he escaped your plot to kill him. He's alive. He is in power. I want to introduce you to Jesus the Christ. That man is on the wheel with his teacher. He's been up there now for 42 years. He said that God studied 42 years to deliver us from the hands of our tormentors. He's ready now. Now listen, I'm not playing now. They don't want to give you up. But I'm saying this to you, President Trump. The ball is in your court now. Well, what do you have for me to do? I think you should repent for all the evil that America has done to us, to the peoples of the world, like it was in Nineveh, the only city that ever was saved in the Bible from the judgment of God was because Jonah, a faithful prophet, warned them, and they had the heart to repent. And Nineveh lived for 300 more years. We're at the end of America as you know it. But if you let us go, you don't have nothing for us to do. But you have planned to continue the work of your predecessors, not Barack. Barack is out of it, yet in it. Poor fella. He wanted to be Pharaoh. And he's not a good Pharaoh. I mean, the pot is not made for him. He tried out for it, and they gave him 8 years, you know, and look at the way they talked about him. We helped put him there. They called him a monkey. They mocked his wife and children. Mr. Trump darn near tore up the White House, getting every aspect of him out of there before he moved in. You hate our shadow. He was a good man, and you hamstrung him. He could have helped you, not to be great again, but to be better. Better than you are, and better for the world, because you taking the world down with you. Now, I have delivered a message and a warning, Mr. Trump, because I don't have an armada. I come to you. No army, no navy. These brothers that are around me, they don't carry any weapons. We're forbidden to carry weapons. We're forbidden to store weapons in our home. So if you want to kill us, we're here. I'm not running from you. I'm running to you. Because I had one more thing to do. And I earned me a first-class ticket to the wheel. And unfortunately, I had to learn what that one more thing was. I tried doing many things. I said, what is that one more thing? What is the one more thing that Jesus had to do before he could go to be with the Father? He had to go to Calvary and Golgotha and be crucified and die. I told you from Reverend Willie Wilson's church, I know the price that I gotta pay, not for lying, but for telling the truth. I've suffered all these years for telling the truth. My family has suffered all these years for being with a father and a husband that tells the truth. But I'm at the end of my journey among you. A temporary pause. And when you hear that I'm gone, I will get away. You're not going to kill me. He told me in a cryptic sentence, he said, brother, if Allah can't save me, that's a sign that he can't save you. I went to a funeral that was supposed to have been his. I saw a body that was supposed to have been his. I kissed the forehead of that body, and I believed that my teacher was dead. But if he was dead, all the things that he taught me wouldn't make any sense, because he gave me so much to do that I couldn't do it if he were not alive to guide me in the doing of it. So in 1981, I said, no, he's alive. I learned through study and through help from those who heard him say things that he never said to me, because he knew his servant. I would be dead now if I believed he was alive, because I would have fought like hell to keep the work that he had done alive. But he wanted it destroyed. Fulfilling the scripture, unless a seed of corn fall to the earth and die, it can't bring up a new stalk. I've been among you now 40 years, and I have not wavered one time. And they have not been able to make me bow down. Neither have you, my black brother and sister. I have fought for you. And I ask you for nothing. So, Mr. Trump has a decision to make. I don't go to White Houses. If his study of what I'm sending him in the mail to let him see what the CIA is doing to black people and what the government has been doing. If you wish to talk to me, I'll be glad. Because it's not about that kind of deal. It's about letting our people go. Because you know you have nothing for them to do. Well, what do you want? Well, some of this earth that we can call our own. How much do you owe us? Have you ever added it up? In today's dollars, it's in trillions what you owe us. So just like you pushed the Palestinians out to give the Jews a homeland, and we're the real ones. Push some of your own people out. And we'll take 8 states. Oh, Farrakhan, now the wheels have gone off your wagon. Yeah, well, you didn't have none on yours. Let me tell you something. If you don't give justice to us, you will lose everything you got, including your life. Because God now said he's ready to fight you for our deliverance. And he told me to tell you, you don't have no fight against the forces of nature. I know you say it's global warming. No, brother and sister, there is global warming. It's true. And man and woman have done something to produce a warming. But what you seeing, that ain't global warming, baby. That's the judgment of God. And so I'm here to tell you that I come to you, but I got backup. I don't have no aircraft carrier. But he already told me what he's going to do with the 6th and 7th Fleet. You squeeze me a little, and I'll tell you a little more.